to go racing.
The pressure is really on now.
And it's pole position.
And it's pedal to the metal. Go, go, go!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome along then to F3 here on PC in the PSGL. My name is Daniel Gilligan, and alongside me today in the virtual commentary box, I have Scruffy with me. Scruffy, how are you doing today?
I am good, thank you. Yourself? How's everything going on your end?
It's absolutely fantastic, to be honest. I've had a day off from work. It's not
nice.
too bad at all. So in terms of today, of course, we are at the circuit Zanfort. The circuit, of course, F1 is visiting for the first time this weekend in a number of years. Here in the PSGL, though, of course, we've been to it many times before. This evening, of course, we're going to have all these F3 drivers. We've made our predictions, of course. We've got 1 second is my prediction for this evening, and you've gone with John TF1.
Yes, same as last time.
Same as last time. Same
Yep.
as last time. Good. And what's sort of the reasoning behind your decision there?
He's not exactly the first. I mean, he's not. I think the biggest point is he's not entirely very consistent at the moment, but the reason is he's still fairly quick. So I'm just sort of hoping for that consistency over the races to get a little bit better. He has got a second place finish at one point, and that was sort of the only time he's really got many points. So sort of hoping for the consistency increase.
Absolutely. Okay, well, if we have a look at the standings here on the screen then, the driver I've selected 1 second, currently leading the championship in their Williams, of course, with a pole position and a win last time out in Spa as well. So with this performance as well, that was 7 seconds win over second place in that race. And it's interesting to note here that every single driver in this particular division, no one has stepped on the podium twice over the course of the first 3 races so far. So things have been relatively, up, down, left, right, that sort of a thing. Who do you reckon is going to be the first one to crack that second podium today?
Ooh, it's an interesting one. I think it's between... I'd say 1 second definitely has a chance, because he's very, very quick, but also incredibly consistent. So I think he's probably going to have the biggest chance here. Again, I think Nomsy as well, because last race, very, very consistent.
Okie dokie. So, in terms of that Drivers' Championship then, we've had a brief look at that. We can also have a look at that later on, of course, just to refamiliarise ourselves with what's going on. We have Nomsky, Cookie, Modesto and Luke Smith that are top 5 there behind 1 second. But now we will head into our hot lap prepared by John TF1 for the circuit Zanfort. So, as you start off then and go down the start-finish straight, you've then got this heavy braking zone into turn 1 where it's a longer slow-speed corner where you're going to be going through 3rd or 4th gear in the dry. And then you head down this tight and twisty area down towards this sort of stadium section here where it banks up the inside, 2nd gear through here, and then slingshot the car out through the exit. Then you've got this long twisting section up here towards a fast right-hand corner here. Now, with the handling model of F1 2021, of course, you are sometimes likely to see a bit of understeer through there. So that's something where you're going to have to keep an eye on what drivers are doing. You then have a dab of brakes, chuck it into here. Be careful of that curb on the outside because that can spin you around. And then through this tight section in the middle of the circuit here. And then rounding through this left-hander, we then go on to the DRS straights. Apart from, of course, the main start-finish straight, we've got this one down here as well. Not going to present many opportunities for overtaking into this slow-speed corner, I'd imagine, as you dab on the brakes and then start accelerating out once again. And then, of course, it's up towards this new reprofiled banked corner. So we have a bit of a dab of brakes here into that one, and then here is the main event. So keeping it tight all the way through, then running up towards the wall on the exit, and then across the line.
It's certainly an incredibly fast track, and I think that's the difference you find around this certain one, is that it's just that final corner is a exceptionally good place to make overtakes.
Certainly is. Certainly is. I mean, I don't know about yourself all that much, but when I've been playing on the F1 games more recently, I did the Breaking Point story mode. Obviously, has one of the chapters is set at Zanfort and things like that, and you've got. I won't spoil it for anybody who's not played it just yet. But in terms of that, you're having to fight through the field. You're chasing that objective, and I would agree that final corner, brilliant in terms of being able to either set up or even execute an overtake around the outside. The AI seem to really struggle around there, but that's obviously something which the drivers today are unlikely to struggle with quite as much.
Precisely, and I think the main point about corner as well is watching out for oversteer. As much as it's not exactly the best corner to really use as an example for potential oversteer, there is still the possibility. Because if you hit the entrance just a tiny bit wrong, you've got too much speed into the corner, and it's very easy to misjudge. So I think that's something to watch out for, as well as just not really knowing where the other cars are. Which can happen when you're sort of in that sort of tunnel vision, trying to set yourself up for the straight, making sure you're in that perfect line.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's one of these things where, of course, as we have a look at our calendar and things like that going on over the course of this season, it's one of these circuits which reminds me an awful lot of Monaco in a way. It's that tight, twisty, you've got a lot of slow speed areas, a lot of high speed areas as well, where you need a lot of commitment on a very thin circuit here at Zanfort. Of course, we've had Bahrain, France and Belgium so far. We have Zanfort here today in the Netherlands, and then, of course, over the next few weeks, we are going to have Italy, Great Britain, Austria, China, Japan, then a break week to coincide with F1 esports, and then Mexico, United States, and to round off the season, it will be a visit to Brazil. So, in terms of all that, then, in terms of the first three races, of course, you've been keeping up with this a bit more easily than I have so far. Have you noticed any trends out of those first three races where you think to yourself, "Oh, do you know what? We've got somebody here who's something special in F3."
I think based on the sort of driver lineup on this front, I think we're sort of, as I said before, working on predictions. 1 second at the very least has started off reasonably sort of okay, but then started getting that consistency up, started getting the speed up, and I think fast laps wise, it really is that top 5 right now. I wouldn't say so far there's really a way to tell who will start to sort of pull away, because it has been very, very even, and the racing has been incredibly close. And as great as that is for the race watching, of course, as great as that is for viewers, it's not very easy to predict who will actually turn out to be victor in the end. And I think it's very much just a case based on who makes the mistakes on the day and who doesn't make the mistakes on the day. And the most important thing is that not making of mistakes. And I think that's really going to be deciding of this. It's picking the right moment to make moves, and I think that's where we're going to see. It's definitely where we're going to see the racecraft has been exceptional, so I think that's the big positive.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting what you mentioned there about mistakes as well, because, I briefly touched on it and in that hot lap there, but there's a number of areas around Zanfort in particular where you have a number of these curbs where the game engine doesn't seem to like them all that much. Certainly in terms of getting onto those curbs, if you end up touching them in a high-speed section of the circuit, or even in the slower speed, it can sometimes spin your car around in a really unpredictable sort of a way. So in terms of that, that's going to be interesting to see, which drivers are a bit more conservative with their lines and therefore less likely to get into danger. But of course, if you can risk it, if you can go that little bit further out, use those curbs and not spin around and make those mistakes, then you're going to gain all sorts of time as well. So that balance of risk versus reward, it's going to be interesting where the drivers go with it today.
Precisely, and of course that's also a tactic from other drivers. It's just making those drivers push a tiny bit too far out onto the curbs where maybe they wouldn't normally move. And I think that could also be it's a tactic just as much for either driver. Make a driver just push themselves a little bit too far, and I think that could be something we see today. Zanfort is not the easiest track in the world to get around in one piece. So yeah, I think right now it's just a case of this is not a track you can let your mind wander. And I think that's something the drivers will most likely be keeping in mind.
Absolutely, yeah. I think in terms of, in terms of we're looking at things like you mentioning there that sort of, if you upset the driver ahead of you, I tend to refer to that an awful lot as the sort of the Fernando Alonso school of overtaking, where you're just getting into their mirrors, just reminding them that you're there lap after lap. You're not necessarily taking the fastest line around the circuit, but you're keeping up with the person that you're fighting with, and you're just reminding them that you're there. Put enough pressure on them, eventually they will crack.
Jesus.
Okie dokie. And I'm told then by our man in the virtual control room, that being our regular commentator here, Biggles, that we are ready, in fact, to go down to the track. So let's have a look then at the circuit Zanfort and where the drivers are coming out onto a wonderful, brightly lit day. Not a cloud in the sky, it seems to be, for qualifying. We'll wait and see, of course, what that condition is going to be like in the race. But in terms of a lap around here, we're probably looking at something in the region of maybe a 1 minute 10, 1 minute 9, something in that region might be our pole position time. But then, of course, that is dependent upon the driver's skill level and how much commitment they're willing to go for. And then, of course, things like their luckiness on those curbs that we've mentioned earlier on. We've got a number of drivers out on the soft tyre at the moment, the majority of the field, in fact. But then we've got the likes of Luke here, just on the medium tyres. We've then got Modesto on the mediums as well. 1 second on the mediums, Moon, Luke Smith, and Sandro as well. So all those guys on the soft tyres, on the mediums, I should say. There's my first Croftyism of the day for you. So they're all on the medium tyres. Interestingly, we've got John and TF1 on intermediate, it seems to be at the moment. So
I just noticed.
I'm sure that it's a well thought out decision, and they're maybe just maybe it's just a way of laying some rubber down on the track and not burning up another set of tyres too early in the qualifying session. Of course, a short qualifying session here. We're not going for the full Q1, Q2, and Q3 format. So in terms of how that affects the grid, of course, when these drivers complete qualifying, the top 10 will need to start the race, if it is a dry race, on the tyre that they set their fastest lap time on. Everybody outside of that top 10 will then have free tyre choice, giving the person in P11 what is effectively known as strategic pole.
I see.
So, in terms of this first lap then, with Luke, let's just have a look at them going around the circuit here. They've been able to navigate that first section nicely here, up towards the end of the first sector, then through this fast right-hander here. Just a little bit of blocking there from the Red Bull, but not enough, I think, to upset them too much, as they set a purple first sector there. Yellow flags in sector 3, as I think there's just an Alfa Romeo getting out the way of somebody else there, or perhaps getting by a slower-moving car. That could have been a Williams or one of the other blue cars in the game at the moment. With Luke, though, continuing around on these medium tyres for this first run. They're heading up down this second DRS straight then at the moment into this slow speed section here. It reminds me an awful lot of the section in Mexico, the slow speed stadium section there. So then heading out down to there towards the final couple of corners, and then a little bit wide of the apex there, but using that exit curve nicely to be able to get back on the power, go through that final corner, and a bit of an anticlimax. They decide to go back into the pit. No, they go down to start finish straight. I am completely wrong. It looked like they were going to go into the pits there. They were hugging the inside very tightly, but it was provisionally pole for them, and now Leonard has gotten themselves up into provisional pole position in their Alpine with a 109.0, and oh dear, that is a Ferrari in the wall. That is not something that we want to be seeing. That is Oskaya up into the wall just as we get towards the final corner there. So front wing gone for them. It'll be a trip back to the pits and no lap time for them.
Not a very long trip back to the pits, though, thankfully, because they did that right on the last corner. You got them a nice little bit. The times are right down there. It's excellent, especially for the first. There's John CF1 setting his 121.6 on those intermediate tyres in the blazing hot sun. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's with the medium tyres as well. I mean, for them to be setting lap times as quick as they are at the moment, they're in the 1 minute 9s. They're competitive with these guys on the softs, as Damien sets a soft time that's it's made me eat my words. That makes the medium runners no longer competitive in any way, shape, or form. A 1 minute 8.6 there for the Haas driver, as we see now another one of these medium tyre shod drivers. That's Luke Smith there, having set a 1:15.4 the first time round, so not the quickest time in the world. So they'll come across the line here for a second attempt, and it's up to P6 on that one there, 1 minute 9.4. So in terms of this then, these guys are going to be hoping if they start within the top 10, they'll be able to go on the mediums, maybe make this one-stop strategy work around here as a new fastest final sector there for Carter Lundy, but no overall fastest time, a 1:08.7 for the Mercedes driver there. Certainly
an interesting. We got drivers on the softs, but I think so far, it's actually a little bit of a wider time gap that we're sort of used to in the previous races here. Zanfort, as mentioned before, it's that track where if you make a mistake, you lose a huge amount of time. And it's not an easy one, especially for quali.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I'm not sure whether it's maybe just my particular driving style or something like that, but certainly I've found that the F1 games have become more difficult for me to set, get my one-lap pace up to speed versus race pace. So if that's something that's a common feeling amongst other players, then potentially it could be that this is exacerbating the problems with the current handling model. Not problems necessarily, but the differences in the current handling model and how people are then reacting and shifting around over the course of one lap. And as you say, if you make one mistake, that's going to end up sending you tumbling down the field here because, of course, just a couple of tenths of a second will send you down a number of positions. If we have a look, if, for example, from P4 down to P9, that's a gap of just 4 tenths of a second. That's essentially, one mistake in one corner, you can easily lose 4 tenths. So we are just having a look now and seeing another few drivers just finishing off some laps at the moment. We've got Kersey here in the Red Bull, and they have set 2 timed laps so far, and or at least gone on 2 laps on these current set of soft tyres. We're having a look at Nomsi as well, just coming around the final. The second sector rather. I'll get it right eventually. Second sector there then, and coming around the final few corners now up towards the bank's final turn. We'll have a look and see what their lap time is likely to be as they come around through the bank corner and up towards the line. What is that time going to be in that Honda-powered Red Bull? They come up to the line, DRS open, nice. And it's third. A 2 tenths gap there from themselves to Damien in P1 with the 108.6, so not a bad effort at all from the Red Bull driver. We have a look now at Oskaya, who, of course, had that incident with the barriers earlier on. And
another incident with the barriers.
Another incident with the barriers, indeed. Oh, he picks a moment when we happen to ride on board with him. But there we go. So into the barriers this time permanently for this qualifying session. So Oskaya will start no better than 18th in this race. And that is on the assumption that Bolin in the Alfa Romeo does not set a time that will beat theirs, which is currently 13 seconds. No, sorry, I lie. I'm having a look at John TF1's time. Set obviously on the intermediate tyres earlier on. So Oskaya not setting a valid lap time yet. So as long as Bolin just sets a time, regardless of how quick or slow it is, they will start ahead of the Ferrari.
And in comes John TF1 to start the lap on the softs. He's finally managed to get those tyres changed.
It certainly has. We've got them just on our screen now. So going through that first sector then, a bit of commitment through that right-hander there and just using the brakes as little as you dare, then through that left-hander, getting that car slingshotted out, using those low gears and ERS to be able to just catapult the car with the massive torque available in these engines. Not having much understeer, it looks like, through there. If anything, a little bit of oversteer, having to do some corrections through the long, fast right-hander. And then up they go there. You can see there, just avoiding that curb on the outside, making sure that they don't get themselves in any bother and end up spinning the car around, anything like that. And then we go onto the DRS straight. It's a nice and neat lap so far, it looks like, from the Mercedes driver as they head down now into that heavy braking zone. Bit wide of the apex there. You can jump over that curb a little bit and not invalidate your lap time, but then they've been able to gather up nicely in the following corner. And now as they go through the penultimate corner, it's a little bit wide of that apex again, but again, using that exit curb to be able to get themselves a good run through that final turn, and then keeping on the left-hand side of the track this time, instead of up to the wall like an awful lot of other drivers, it's P12 for John TF1 this time.
And by the looks, the entire field separated by less than a second.
So there we are then. That's the difference from the first runs of the session. As we see, everybody has started to bed themselves in, and we're seeing these smaller gaps now that we're used to after the last few rounds between these drivers. We've got the Williams here of Sandro, just going around on another timed one at the moment, using as much of the exit curb as they possibly can, and then heading through that penultimate corner there, and then through the final turn, getting nice down low on the banking, and then keeping it middle of the road on the exit there, not going all the way up to the wall on exit, And then up to the line they go. It's P5 for the Williams, just 2/10 away from that pace. Still set by Damien at the moment, who's on an outlap to potentially improve that time even more. Currently closest person to them is Carter Lundy in the Mercedes with just 900ths of a second separating the two. Whilst we're just watching Damien here going on their outlap, I'll just give you a quick full rundown of the provisional order so far. So we've got Damien on pole position at the moment, then Carter Lundy, then Luca, Moon, Nomsy, Leonard, Lefted, Jay, Kersey, 1 second, Big Corny, Mentalism Yon, John TF1, Modesto Maynor, Sally Smith, Luke Smith rather, Ozkai of course having that crash earlier on, and then Bolan yet to set a lap time. So with all that said and done, then we're going to have a look at this lap with Damien. So let's ride on board with them as they take a nice long line around that final corner. They're trying to get as much speed carried through onto the main straight as possible, and then they start their lap. So down into turn 1 they go, braking just around that 50-meter board, being as late as they dare on the brakes there and getting sliding through the corner very nicely there. No signs of oversteer or understeer for them. Bit wide of the apex on that right-hander there, and then coming out wide on the middle of the corner for the left-hander. Then up the hill they go once again, and it's now up towards that long, fast right-hander here. Will they nail that braking? We'll wait and see. It's a purple first sector for them. They've got the braking and the turn-in right for that fast right-hander there. And now if they just keep it on the left-hand side of the circuit, just a dab of brakes before they chuck it into the right-hander, then a bit more heavy braking here as they head round into this slower speed section before getting onto that DRS straight coming up in just a moment's time. And then opening up that DRS they go, and then charging down here towards that heavy braking zone that comes at the end of this straight. And then another purple sector for them here. So as long as no major mistakes in this final sector here, we're likely going to see an improvement on that pole time from Damien so far, as the Haas driver comes through the penultimate corner now and heads on towards the bank corner, and towards the start finish straight they'll go, keeping tight to the inside then, and then middle of the road moving over to the right as they go towards the pit wall, across the line. It's a new fastest time, a 1:08.4 there for the Haas driver.
Oh, there's definitely stuff happening with Damien on this one. He's definitely very quick on Zanfort.
It certainly is. I think that one driver we should keep an eye on, of course, who's yet to emerge from the pits again to do another run on fresh tyres, is Carter Lundy. Of course, they were just 900ths of a second away from Damien's original time, as Nomsy now goes up into P2, just 1/10 shy. So clearly there's some good track evolution going on that's allowed Damien to improve on their time, has allowed Nomsy to get within 1/10 there, 1.5 tenths or so. So it could be that Carter ends up getting themselves a good opportunity here to be able to get a good stab at pole position, but we'll wait and see, of course, for the Mercedes driver to re-emerge from the pits. We've got Sally on screen at the moment as they're coming around the end of the second sector here, and now on to the third. So through the final couple of corners they will go, and this one, of course, looks to be a timed lap. They are on fresh tyres, they are not on an outlap, so they head towards the line. What will it be for the McLaren? And it's still P16, unfortunately. No improvement there, or at least no improvement in position. There may have been an improvement in time, but no improvement in position for the McLaren driver at the moment then. So, in terms of other drivers currently out and about, we've got Sandro on screen now, just on an out lap in the middle of the circuit, so we'll be expecting them to get on the pace relatively shortly in that 93 car. And then in terms of other drivers on the circuit as well, we've got Moon currently on a lap, having a big oversteer moment there as they come through, really hustling the car as they come through those slow speed corners, and then heading onto that DRS straight. They've got the rear flap open, of course gaining a good 7-8 kilometers an hour down that straight, depending on their setup configuration, of course. And then through they go in that final sector. Another big oversteer, slidey moment there for them as they head now through the penultimate corner and up towards the final corner now. So keeping it middle of the road initially, and then moving slightly closer to the inside, then running out on exit, and it's back in the pits. No new time from there.
And John TF1 coming straight into the pits as well. As we sit with Lou Smith, that's a purple sector on that front. From Lou Smith, purple second sector. It'll be interesting to see where he comes around this lap to actually finish on this qualify. We'll see what time he manages to put on this one if he doesn't dive into the pits. He does not. He is going to come across the line with a 1:08.655, putting him into third on the timing boards. That is one hell of a jump.
It certainly is. That's a very, very good effort from Luke Smith there. getting themselves high up the order after their initial runs, of course, experimenting on the intermediate tyre. Was that Luke Smith or was that another driver? I forget. We then have this Williams coming around the final couple of corners then. This is Sandro, who of course we briefly saw on their outlet, but as you can see, red track map, that means an invalidated lap, so into the pits they will go then. We've got the Ferrari then of Cookie coming around the final turn, heading towards the line. What time's it going to be for them? Well, it's a perfectly respectable time. It's 8/10 away from the pole position, but because of the very narrow spread in this field, that means they're still down in 18th position.
And I think that's the hardest thing, is getting those large gains, which at this point are there, evidently. It's just finding them. I think that's the hardest bit, because it's not like you can really watch these drivers' laps or make sure that you're going faster. It's just eking those hundredths out of the lap.
So in terms of this lap that we're seeing now then, we've got Carter Lundy starting their timed lap at the moment then. We've had good first sector, it looks like, from them at the moment. They've got this run up the hill now, where they will come towards that fast right-hander, and that will be the end of the first sector. We'll wait and see whether or not they're able to set a purple, and they do. So, a threat now to Damien's lap time at the top of the timing sheet from the Mercedes driver of Carter Lundy. They come now through the second sector. Good, brave, aggressive attacking through that fast couple of corners there, and now as they go through the slower section, they're bringing the car over to the right hand side, using as much of the road as they can to get a good entry then into the left hander. Onto the DRS straight they go. It's then DRS wide open as they come across the sector split. It's another purple sector, so it's all about this final sector then. If they can keep it together, if they can keep it faster or as fast as what Damien was able to do, then that means that they will be taking that pole position slot as things stand. And with only 1 3/4 minutes to go in the session, we will have to wait and see as to whether or not this is going to be our actual pole sitter here. Now, across the line they go. Oh, it's so close. 4/100ths of a second there from pole position. So Damien managing to keep a hold of that pole for now, provisionally. But we do still have some drivers out on a time lap at the moment, including this man, Luca, in the Aston Martin, of course, coming around to the final few corners at the moment. And as they head up towards the final couple of corners, it looks like a relatively decent lap from what we've seen so far, but we'll have to wait and see, of course, as they come around the final turn. They're not going to get any sort of a drag or anything like that on the car ahead, so it's all under their own steam, and it's P4 for them, 2/10 off of pole position. Just having a look now at Sally as well, who's got 7/10 or so of a gap to pole position at the moment. So we'll see whether or not they can reduce that gap down and get themselves higher up the order. But getting all the way out there is not going to help. And you can see there, leaving a trail of dirt off the left rear tyre there as they come around the final corner. They open up the DRS, go to the line, and there doesn't seem to be any improvement on that one. So unfortunately for them, still down in P17 for the McLaren driver. We've then got 1 second here. Of course, poleman last time out and winner of the Belgian Grand Prix. They're coming round the final few corners here at Zanfort, but they've got traffic ahead of them here. And is that Red Bull going to get out of the way? It doesn't look like it. They're at a part of the circuit where it's going to be very difficult for them to get out of the way. In fact, they're now right tucked up behind them. They could potentially get a little bit of a tow down the start-finish straight here. What's it going to be? P6 for 1 second there. And you have to think that perhaps that turbulent air coming up from the car ahead of them may have just cost them a few tenths there. Possibly just even the 1/10, but even then, 1/10, that might have gotten them a bit further up the order. As we've got yellow flags now in all sectors of the circuit. What on earth is going on? So we've got the checkered flag on this session. Sandro has crossed the line and finished their final lap. They have gone P7 in the Alpine. And now we're just on board with Moon in the Alfa Romeo. They're coming through now, P10 at the moment, so realistically they would hope to improve at this point because they've got essentially the worst scenario at the moment. And oh dear, that's not how you improve. And it looks like a McLaren has come a hot foot ahead of them, doing something similar as well, as they were right up against the barrier. And oh dear, that is not how the Alfa Romeo wants to end their session. I was about to say they're in P10 at the moment, and that's essentially the worst place you can possibly be, because you're stuck on the tyres you've used in qualifying, and you're right in front of that guy on the strategic pole, who can use fresh tyres, of course. We'll have to wait and see whether anybody in the lower half of the grid is able to dislodge them, and potentially give the Alfa Romeo of Moon some fighting chance in the race here. But across the line comes Cookie now. and it's P13 for the Ferrari there. So no improvement up to the points-paying positions, and that means no dislodging of Moon from that position. At the moment, there's only one other driver, I think, on circuit who could do it, and that would be JST. And they have run out of fuel. So there we are then. That is that from them. And yeah, but unfortunately for them, there we go. They've retired from the session. So that is your qualifying order, unless Nomsky comes into the pits. So that is your provisional qualifying order then, everybody. We will have that up on the screen in just a moment. I will read that out for you all. But that is Damien on pole position in the Haas.
Certainly an interesting qualifying session. As
Certainly
mentioned,
was.
Mistakes, they happen at those curbs, are an absolute nightmare.
They certainly are. They certainly are. Just a gap of 0.02 of a second between P2 and P3, but we'll give you a full rundown of the order now then. So, Damien in pole position with Nomsky alongside. Then we have Carter Lundy and then Luke Smith. Then 1 second, VRT Sandro next. Then, what's that, Corny? Then Modesto, and then Moon, Kersey, JST, Cookie, Leonard, Lefted, Mentalism, John at TF1 and Sally, and I'll have to wait for the stream to catch up on my end so I can just catch the last couple there that I missed. So what we'll do, we'll just go into an intro here for you as we get...
It's time once again to go racing.
The pressure is really on now.
And it's pole position.
And it's pedal to the metal, go, go, go!
So everybody, welcome back then. After that brief interlude, while we waited for everybody to get themselves on the grid, we're now in the formation lap, and as you can see here, there is a differing choice in strategy from P11 down. We've got everybody in the top 10, of course, starting on the soft tyres that they set their fastest time on in qualifying just now. And then after them in P11, we've got medium tyre, then P12, mediums, hards, mediums, hards. So there is a bit of a split there in terms of the opinion. In fact, a direct split, 5 and 5 deciding to go mediums and 5 going on the hards, whilst everybody in the top 10 on those softs. Now, around Zanfort, you can get the one-stop strategy done, even if you are using the soft tyre. It is definitely possible to go from soft to hard, but even potentially to go from soft to medium, though, of course, whether or not you're going to be able to maintain enough pace to remain competitive, that is going to be the key bit of information there. But, of course, being such a narrow and twisty circuit of many parts, Zanfort could potentially give you that opportunity. If you are able to chance the one stop, then you have that track position, and then you can try and defend your position rather than try go on the attack and make the overtakes happen. So in terms of our races at the moment as well, in terms of this dry race that we're seeing at the moment, of course, if we see any changes in the weather, we will let you know. But in terms of the dry conditions, you're expecting to see something in the region of about 65% in terms of energy harvesting from the ERS over the course of a lap, and then you will start to see something in the region of, as the screen has just gone black on my end, so I will just quickly flip over to somebody else's, and I'm not... So there we go, we're back on now. So there we are, just a small technical hitch there, but we're all back and running. So in terms of that harvesting then, so you'll be likely to get between 60-65% harvesting over the course of a lap. So as long as you don't exceed that, you'll always be in a surplus rather than a deficit. So in terms of areas where you're likely to see the drivers using that overtake if they're just in clean air, that's going to be out of the slow speed corners, of course, because you get that better traction and better torque. But as they all line up on the grid now, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights lights out, and away we go. And it looks like a good start from the front row. Both cars getting away well, but Damien clearly in a bit of a better position than Nomsi behind, and then into turn one they go. No contact that I can see just yet. We've got nobody in the barriers, nobody off the circuit. Everything seems to be going well so far. Everybody keeping it clean, which is good to see. As they come down into this long left-hander then, we've got everybody just sneaking their way back up the hill. We're on board with Luke Smith at the moment, chasing after their teammate Luca in the other Aston Martin. They've got Carter Lundy just ahead of them, and then Nomsi and Damien ahead of them as well. Behind Luke Smith, we've got Sandro and 1 second in the Alpines. They're both racing after them and trying to make up for qualifying performances that may not have done them justice. We've then got these guys further back as well. And we're just seeing oh, sorry, no, I apologise. Sandro in 1 second in the Williams cars, not in the Alpines. So there we are then, those guys in the Williams just making up for the lost time in qualifying. So as they head through this tight stadium section here, it is single file at the moment. Nobody seems to be making any moves at all. We've got some very, very tight gaps on the timing tower you can see there, but we've got no likelihood at the moment of any overtakes happening. We're likely to see more of those opportunities in the next couple of laps when DRS gets enabled at the end of lap, or at the start of lap 3, I should say. Damien comes across the line and of course sets the fastest lap, being the first one to complete a lap on lap 1. And they head down into turn 1. We've got a ghosted car from Carter Lundy there, so they've potentially left the session and will need to rejoin and retake control of that car, otherwise suffer the potential of falling down the order. We'll wait and see, of course, as to what happens with them. We've then got, big snap of oversteer from the Williams of Sandro there as they come out of that slow left, and that's put them under threat from their teammate 1 second. 1 second, less than a second behind them, in fact. 2/10 the gap between the two Williams teammates, but up at the front, it's also a 2.5 gap between Damien and Nomsi here. The Red Bull using a bit more of those curbs, getting a bit more time, getting a bit more space on the circuit, but of course, as we mentioned in the pre-show and in qualifying, that's a risky strategy. If you end up doing that too often, it will bite you back, I'm sure. No DRS just yet, so as they head down this second DRS straight, everything is looking good for the race leaders so far, but they may well come under threat in the next couple of laps or so. As they head through this slower section in the stadium here, we then head up towards the penultimate corner, and then through the banking curve, of course, after that. So using the exit curve, using a little bit more than the Red Bull there, and as they head down onto the start-finish straight, the gap remains at about half a second. We've got this battle here between the two Williams teammates, one of the closest on circuit at the moment, as Damien sets a new fastest lap of a 1:11.3. The Williams then pulls to the inside, and he gets up, so 1 second overtaking Sandro there, and then Sandro being demoted down into P7, their teammate getting ahead of them, and will now just try and chase after the Aston Martins ahead. They've then got the Alpha Tauri of Big Comey just behind them in threatening position there, car 52, and as they're just heading uphill now through this first sector, will the Williams be able to keep on defending, and will they be able to keep their position, or are they going to come under threat and attack from everybody behind? They could well end up becoming a bit of a cork in the bottle here, or it could be an act of, well, your teammate's faster, let them by for the Constructors' Championship. We'll wait and see. Scruffy, what are you thinking so far?
We've already lost lefted, actually. On the first lap, we had a little bit of an incident between, I believe it was Cookie and Lefted. Lefted losing the front wing during that, and I'm pretty certain that's most likely a bit of accidental contact in the rear end of the car. He just shoved the front wing off, so that's why, if you look on the track map, you'll see Lefted a little bit lonely in that first sector.
Certainly are, just
it's been
just a
very
little
close.
bit.
It's been very close.
There they are. Very close up and down the field. So currently we have what would likely be the most expensive sandwich in the world, with 2 pieces of hash bread on either side of it in this field, one leading, one at the back, as everybody else heads around in the middle. So we've got gaps of under a second for the vast majority of the field from them to the next car either side, and that includes, of course, this battle for the lead here. Just 3/10 the gap between Nomsi and Damien up at the front, and as they crack on and go round these next few corners, of course, we now have DRS in operation. So how is that going to affect things going forward? We'll wait and see. Of course, John TF1 getting a 3-second time penalty there as we head round through. Now, of course, strict track limits, that's going to mean that if you overstep your welcome on some of these curbs, they may not end up spinning you around, but certainly if you put all 4 tyres outside of the white lines, then that's going to be a penalty for you. So we can then see here we've got Sandro making what seems to be a bit of a counter-attack to their teammate, 1 second, who of course got by them just a couple of laps ago. And now as they head round the penultimate corner here, of course, crucially, 1 second does not have DRS on a car in front of them. There is a 1.9 second gap between them and Luke Smith and the Aston Martin, so they are going to be a little bit of a sitting duck here. They're going to have to hope that they've got enough battery pack available to defend, but it looks like they've survived it this time. Their teammate was getting very close, almost alongside, and they would have needed to give space there. As it was very clean racing between the pair of them. No risk of contact seen there, but as they head now through this first sector, it looks like things are very close between this midfield pack, and as I say, the Williams seem to be the cork in the bottle here, whether that's 1 second or Sandro in front, both of them not holding the same amount of pace as, is that a move round the outside from the AlphaTauri? They certainly think about it as they head through the long right-hander rather, it's very, very close between these guys, and it seems as though Sandro has taken on a bit of a defensive role for their teammate here, and the whole field now getting bunched up behind them. 1 second, of course, having led the championship going into this round, taking pole position and the win last time out in Spa. So they will be looking to try and capitalise, try and get up to speed and try and close this gap down. But as it is, it's currently extending. It was 2 seconds at the start of this lap, but now it is 2.5 seconds as they come through the final sector and on towards the start-finish straight.
Some slightly interesting moves from Salah back further down as he's got the Alpha of Bowen, absolutely banging wheels.
Side by side, yes.
Oh, it's gone!
Oh dear, that's round 2 first round. Oh dear, the McLaren, they're just getting a slight touch on the Alfa Romeo. That sent the Alfa Romeo into a spin. They hit the wall, and then the overcorrection from the McLaren it looks like sent the Ferrari just into the wall. That's Cookie out of the race on the start-finish straight, and that calls out a safety car. That is going to be something that this man here, Lefted, has an awful lot of good praise for, because that will get them back into this race, having obviously had that first lap collision or contact of some description, and now down the order, massively down the order, and as these, and so let's show a replay then very quickly. We'll have a look at something that we've. Nope, never mind. I'm told it's not working. We'll go on without it. So we'll stick with live pictures for you. This is what the situation is then. We've had contact between, I believe it was Sally and the McLaren. It was certainly one of the McLarens with the Alfa Romeo of, I believe it was Bolin. Though it must have been Bolin because they're the only Alfa Romeo behind them. So Bolin made contact with the McLaren going through the final corner, and then that then led to a collision between either the McLaren or the Alfa Romeo with the Ferrari of Cookie, and so they are out of this race. As it is, everybody is just leading the way now, and that's interesting. So we've got a repeat almost of the Lewis Hamilton start in Hungary situation here, but the Aston Martin teammates have not communicated with one another, and that means that they are double stacking. That means that Luke Smith is going to lose a massive amount of positions here. Luca is dropping down the field, but he'll be able to get away. He'll be able to start driving off into the distance, but no, his teammate is going to be sat there waiting forever for the mechanics to get ready again. You can see they've just been released from the box, but they're now in P12, whereas their teammate is in P6. What a disaster for Aston Martin.
And I think Luca actually got a slight bit of overtake on the entrance to the pit lane. But overtook a car right... Oh, there's a 5-second penalty for John TF1 for speeding in the pit lane, as we're talking about the pit lane, of course. But yeah, I think someone actually got a bit of a sneaky overtake on the pit line.
Ooh, well, interesting.
Not sure who that was, but managed to make it work.
Hey, if it works and the game doesn't penalise you for it, and the stewards aren't likely to penalise you for it, then go for it. Why not? So we've got, as it is, we've got who's that? That's Mentalism Johan, currently in P2, having not stopped just yet on the hard tyres they started, and seemingly that has proved a massive benefit and a boon to them as they head round now on lap 7 of this Dutch Grand Prix, and they are currently behind Damien, the only car in the field now not to have pitted apart from the McLaren behind them. Both of them running the tyres from the start of this race. Everybody else now onto either brand new hard or brand new medium tyres. Everybody on the mediums, you would imagine, is hoping that because of the slow speeds behind the safety car, they're not going to be able to get themselves in a position where they're going to be wearing out those tyres too much, and they will therefore be able to take them to the end. That will be the hope, but certainly those ones on the hard tyre, they've played it safe. They've decided, right, we need to get to the end. We don't want to end up boxing again. Let's just make sure we get this one to the finish line. So, in terms of that, Len, let's have a look. Who's, Scruffy, you're a bit more experienced with this division than I. Let's have your take on it and see, who's likely to be doing well and doing badly out of this situation. Who are the pacey drivers that the audience should be keeping an eye on here?
I think the most important thing, as we've mentioned before, is 1 second was evidently a fast driver in the last race, and he is fast overall. But you've also got Lundy, you've got Nomsy, and you've got Damien, all of which are very, very quick drivers, and they're all very, very good off the line. So it's a case of mostly who's got those fast reaction times, because of course, it doesn't matter whether you're in first place in the safety car queue or if you're in 19th. as we see a 5-second penalty for ignoring the yellow flags by Mentalism Yo. But I think the main point is that's going to be very huge for him because he's in second place, and if he keeps that place throughout the race, then that's going to drop him very, very far down the field, outside of the top 10 potentially. But I think the main important thing to remember here is it doesn't matter where you are. If you get a good start from 19th, you could overtake a full 10 cars. But it's just based on pure skill on half that stuff, and I think JST also not too slow, as well as Luke Smith. Both drivers who have the potential pace, it's making it stick. And I think Luke Smith could actually get a quite nice run off the safety car being in 12th. He's a solid midfield. Plenty of positions to gain, but also plenty of positions that will be blocking him from gaining them.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. And so we've got another tour around behind the safety car, it seems. So one more lap where we will be just waiting for things to go on. We've got a time penalty there for Mentalism Johan there. I'm not sure where that's come from. Has that come from speeding behind the safety car, perhaps?
That was not
behind the safety car?
It was, I mentioned it a second ago, actually. Basically, just before that lap, he was ignoring the yellow flags.
Ah, I see. Right, gotcha.
That's about to overtaken under the safety car.
Okie dokie then. We've got then John TF1 into the pits again, going on to the medium tyres this time. So fresh mediums on lap 9, at least one more lap behind the safety car. I mean, they were trundling around way behind the field for a bit, so you'd have to think that they've got nothing to lose, at least at this point. The one thing that I would be concerned about if I was a hard tyre runner here is, whilst the tyres are fresh and they will definitely get to the end and all that sort of thing, there is going to be that grip offset when they get going, and there's also going to be the difficulty of actually getting these tyres up to temperature, because of course with that harder, stiffer compound, much like in the real world, you need to get that tread moving to be able to generate heat and energy in there, and if you're not able to do that on the hard tyres, particularly in the case of Mentalism Johan as well, who of course on 8-lap old hard tyres, so they're not going to be as easy to warm up and get into the operating window, you may end up seeing that there are some warm-up issues for these guys on the restart. So we may see some action where those in the lower end of the field are able to get themselves up the order by virtue of a better restart. You can notice it especially in race starts, that difference between tyre compounds. But now we've got notification from race control. The safety car is in at the end of this lap. So Damien now backing up the field on those old soft tyres. They've done 8 laps, of course, but 3 of those have been behind the safety car, so they will effectively have only 5 laps worth of proper degradation at racing speeds on them. And now, as the safety car is still coming around that final bank turn, so of course got to be careful in this game that you don't end up going too early, don't end up getting too close to the back of the safety car, because then that will cause the auto brakes to go on. It could result in a Mugello style crash at the back of the field, and he's gone. He has gone. He's caught the McLaren napping there, and Carter Lundy now perfectly poised to be able to make a run down in this first corner here without the use of DRS, of course, because we just had a full safety car. They pull to the inside. Are they going to go for it? No, they don't. Not on this occasion. Cold tyres, cold brakes, but everybody seems to be navigating turn 1 okay for now. It looks like there's an action there between Luke Smith and Sandro, between the Aston Martin and the Williams. Looks like Luke Smith has been able to get themselves by there, and that's put Sandro offline and meant they've started fighting with the AlphaTauri of JST. Meanwhile here, this battle that we're looking at, Luca is now right up behind 1 second. They pull to the outside. Oh, don't try it round there. No, no, no. And they slot back in behind. Probably the discretion, the better part of Valor there, must be said. And they decide to just follow on for now. Nomsi here, right up behind Carter Lundy in the Mercedes, who initially having a very good run, it seemed, on Mentalism Johan, but the McLaren has been able to get themselves a nice little gap. And because of the fight that they're now having to experience, that being Carter Lundy and Nomsi, that is going to slow up the Mercedes even more. But now Nomsi up the inside on those medium tyres, so much more grip available to them, and up into P3 they go. Brilliant.
And as Luca jumps through as well, past 1 second to make sure that that sticks as well, and that's another position gain for him. Oh, there's a lot of close racing, and that's what I love about Zanfort.
Yeah, absolutely. So these guys still cracking on and still making some good moves. We've still not got DRS back just yet, as a new fastest lap of the race from Damien. So those soft tyres clearly still have some life in them yet if they're able to do that. And they currently are pulling out a good gap to P2 at the moment, 1.6 seconds. And P2 themselves not under massive threat just yet from Nomsy behind. Nomsy about half a second back from the McLaren, but that half second, of course, it needs to be an awful lot smaller than that around Zanfort to be able to make an effective overtake, much like this gap that we're seeing here between Carter Lundy and Luca. About 1.5 tenths between the two of them as we ride on board with the Aston Martin now, as they are on the hunt. They want to get back up the order here. They have those pacier tyres. They need to make advantage of them earlier on here. Whilst they're still fresh. And that's a bit of a wide moment there, outbraking themselves, and obviously just up ahead, and that's going to put them off massively. And it's a lucky thing indeed that there's no DRS just yet, because I think that plus the overspeed that Carter Lundy just had may have resulted in an overtake into here. But as things stand, they continue on, no problem at all for now, and they'll need to get that gap back down to the McLaren ahead of them, which was down to about 4 tenths of a second. It's now gone up to just about 7 tenths, just shy. There we go, it's now 7 tenths. The McLaren surviving very well so far on 10-lap-old hard tyres.
It's actually quite impressive, to be honest. I've seen longer, but given the fact that the safety car was out, and considering that those tyres would have been absolutely freezing by the time they came around the final corner for the safety car coming in, and especially given how far Damien backed the entire field up, that's either some very good skill or some very good skill at getting heat into the tyres very quickly.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a real. And we've got an incident somewhere on the circuit. Somebody has retired. That is Oskaya in the other Ferrari, but it looks like they've retired in the pit lane, so they've had enough of this race clearly, and that will be all she wrote for them. The McLaren of Mentalism Johan now dropping even further back behind Damien up at the front. 2.9 seconds the gap between the pair of them now, but this is the crucial fight here. Nomsy on those medium tyres, much fresher than Damien's softs up ahead, and as soon as they get clear air by overtaking the McLaren, which I get a sense is going to be happening sometime soon, they will then be able to get chasing after the Haas and be able to get themselves in a good position. Speaking of good positions, a much better entry through the penultimate corner there for the Red Bull, and as they come round the final corner, it's DRS open for them, and down the start finish straight they go, and already alongside, already ahead before the braking zone, and into turn 1 they go, up into P2. Brilliant bit of racing from these guys so far, keeping it clean. No major incidents that we've seen so far, other than that one with the Ferrari, the Alfa Romeo, and the McLaren of Sally just further back down the field, which of course brought out that safety car. We've got this fight going on at the moment for the final step on the podium, with Carter Lundy trying to get their Mercedes by the McLaren of Mentalism Johan just ahead of them. Johan rather, not Johan. That's a different person entirely. We've got Luke Smith also retiring from the session. The Aston Martin has retired in the first sector, it looks like. No, second sector. So they've retired in the second sector just after that fast right-hander that we've mentioned a few times over the course of this broadcast. That's brought out another safety car. So that's going to bunch the field up all over again. That also is going to give this man the opportunity to get themselves into the pits and off those soft tyres, because of course when the safety car is initially called, it's much like a virtual safety car. Everybody has to drive to a delta until they've completed that first lap since the notification. So that means that Damien is going to get a good free pit stop here, where they will still fall down the order, but they will not fall as far down as if everybody was allowed to go at full speed at the moment. That being said though, because the field has only recently been behind the safety car, it's all so closely packed together that yeah, it looks like actually most of the field is going to get by them here. Yep, there they go. Only the other drivers who went to pit behind them seem to have come out behind. No, I lie. They've just overstepped the exit line of the pits there slightly, but they have come out ahead of a few cars there. That tighter inside line of the pit lane exit there, helping them to just reclaim a couple of positions. But certainly down the start-finish straight, it did look for a moment there like the vast majority of the field had passed them. But as it is, Damien in P10 on fresh tyres.
And it remains to be seen whether that will actually become an advantage towards the end of the race, because, well, we're not even at 15 laps yet out of 36, and it's a case of the whole field will bunch up now, which most likely gives an advantage, you'd think, to the drivers with the fresh tyres. Which means the bottom 5 could very soon become the top 5. We're not there's no way of telling really, apart from driver skill and how well they get off the line and how far Nomsy decides to back up the entire field by the end of the safety car.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that the important thing as well, and again, it's something we mentioned briefly in the pre-show and in qualifying as well, but the advantage here of Zanfort, if you pit earlier, of course, and then are able to get yourself up towards the front of a safety car queue like this, is track position. Apart from the main start-finish straight, there aren't very many opportunities to make an overtake happen here. We've seen all race long people following around within 2/10 or so of the car ahead of them, maybe even 1.5 tenths as we saw earlier on going through the fast right-hander. But if you're unable to just effectively make an overtake through a heavy braking zone or something like that, or a mistake from the car ahead of you, whatever it happens to be that creates that opportunity, then track position kind of becomes a bit more important than it could do at other tracks like, say, Spa that we went to last weekend, or last week I should say, where of course, you know, the wider circuit there gives you more opportunities to make more overtakes happen with different lines. Another circuit that is very good for that sort of thing, of course, being the Circuit of the Americas, which we will be going to later on in this season. In terms of this man here, we have Big Comey, just Big Corny rather. That's my wonderful eyesight there helping me out. They, in the AlphaTauri, have done reasonably well so far. They're up in P5 on those hard tyres that have only done 7 laps, so they can definitely get to the end on those tyres. You could say, in fact, that probably everybody in the top 10 could get themselves to the end. In fact, the entire field, I would go so far to say, would be able to get themselves to the end on the tyres that they're currently on. So it's going to be down to drivers like Damien, who were up at the front previously, and the likes of 1 Second, JST, Mentalism Johan, Sally as well. All those guys towards the back of the field who, of course, you mentioned earlier, Scruffy, who've just pitted and got onto those fresher tyres. Hopefully that tyre offset in terms of the performance is going to mean that they will get themselves into a position where they can overtake and get themselves back up the order, because it's very unlikely, in my opinion, that anybody is going to be pitting again up at the front. So then, safety car in this lap, and Nomi just backing up the field, Nomsi rather, backing up the field and getting ready to go once again. So they're just weaving back and forth. They're coming through the final turn. They haven't gone yet, unlike Damien originally. That looked like a bit of contact there, but that may have just been a bit of delay. And a brilliant move from Luca. Luca's swung by the Mercedes, but then they've had to give that place back. They've clearly overtaken just before the safety car line or the start-finish line, so they've had to give that position back, but it would have been a very opportunistic good move if they'd been able to pull that off inside of that allowed zone to overtake. So, as it is, the top 3 remain the same. So does everybody else, it seems. But, oversteer moment for Moon there, and that's going to give Kersey the opportunity now. Side by side, but no, as they come out of the exit, that's better traction for the Alfa Romeo, and the Alfa Romeo just moving back up in front again. Sandro here, we're just on board with at the moment in the Williams. They're just following along behind Kersey and Moon at the moment, just waiting for these two guys to maybe make a mistake, or maybe come together, in fact, and end up giving 2 positions to that driver there in the Williams. Now we've got then this battle going on up at the front here with Luca on those medium tyres that haven't done very many laps. It says 8 there, but it hasn't been many laps under full racing conditions. It's mostly been behind the safety car. So these guys have a massive pace differential between the pair of them, and it's going to require some very good defensive driving from Carter Lundy here to be able to keep the Aston Martin behind. It's black Mercedes versus green Mercedes at the moment here, and there will be no DRS. Oh dear, and that's Bolan round. Bolan has gone off the circuit somewhere, and they're also joined at the back there by John TF1, so perhaps contact between the two of them. And we've got then this battle here up at the front then between Carter Lundy and Luca. Luca goes round the outside in turn 1 at Zanfort. They go all the way round using that grip from the medium tyres, and up into P2 they go. They've got clean air now, and they can chase down after Nomsi. Brilliant bit of racing from these guys here.
And just behind you've got Corny with Modesto Mena. Corny, of course, on the actual standings, got 8 points in the first race, 6 points in the second, and unfortunately it did not start on the third. And I think if we're working on anyone for the most consistent, we're probably looking at either himself or Leonard in the Alpine.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you there. We just got a move from one of the Williams trying to get up the inside of the Alpine there. That's 1 second going round Leonard's now. And that's a good bit of racing between those guys from the last few corners. So the Williams goes up into P10. Right behind their teammate. It's now further up the order. We've got Damien here making an aggressive move on the Red Bull of Kersey there, and eventually making that move happen. They were very, very forceful, and not an area of the track where you would expect that sort of overtake to happen, and I'm sure that was the exact thought going through the Red Bull driver's mind. They've now got to defend from the Williams pair behind them, of Sandro rather, and 1 second. DRS has been re-enabled, I think, at this point, so it won't be active down this start-finish straight, but now as the Williams fight side by side together, it's the Williams of 1 second that goes up in front of Sandro on those medium tyres, and they go up now into P10, into the points for Williams, and they will chase down after Kersey on those hard tyres now. So then we'll just watch these guys as they go through the fast right-hander. Everybody seems to be getting this one okay so far over the course of this weekend. It has been an area where some drivers do come a cropper there. And then up the inside, just a bit further up the road. That is 1 second, making a move on Kersey. The same move, in fact, that they managed to do on Leonard last lap. Are they going to make it all the way around the outside onto the DRS straight? Yes, they do! Brilliant bit of racing from the Williams driver. Up into P8 they go, and they will now chase down after Damien up ahead of them. They are fighting for an effective race lead at the moment if they are able to clear the traffic ahead of them on those older tyres.
As you see, Damien right on the back of Moon right now, potentially making a move. Didn't even need the DRS to get alongside him there, but that might actually be a problem on the straight. Who has the better braking? And that will 100%. Oh, and Moon goes wide, and that's Damien taking it up into 6th place with a little bit of a mistake, I presume, by Moon there.
I think that's an example of what you were talking about in qualifying, Scruffy. It's one of these things where you put the guy under pressure ahead of you, he'll make a mistake eventually, just outbraking themselves into turn 1, going way too wide of the apex. Now open the door, and Damien says, thank you very much, I'll take that. And off they go. On this battle here in the midfield, it's very, very close between all these cars. We've got 2 McLarens, an Alpine, and a Red Bull all jammed up together at the moment, and a mistake from any one of them could mean a massive drop in positions or potentially a massive pile-up. It's all to play for at the moment, and just a look down the inside from Johan there. They just thinking about it and deciding the better of it on that occasion as they head now down towards the end of this DRS straight. Their teammate is having a look up the inside as well, but no look on this occasion translates into a move. It's medium tyres versus hard tyres once again. That's how these McLarens are staying in such close contact with the likes of Leonard and Kersey just up ahead of them, as those hard tyres, as I say, will get to the end, but they will be much slower in doing so. As they come now onto the start-finish straight, we're having a look further up the field, and Damien, our former race leader, makes another move up the inside now and get up the inside of Big Corny. Off they go then, and up into P number 5 now for the Haas driver.
Oh, we've had Mentalism Johan just not giving Kersey any room at all, and I think that might have dropped Kersey a couple of positions there. Not entirely sure, but that puts the 2 McLarens right up next to each other.
Certainly does. I think you may well be right there. I think that the McLarens, by one of them overtaking Kersey, that's put them offline and given them a terrible run out of one corner, because Zanfort is a very flowing circuit. It's one corner to the next. If you're able to get a rhythm going, then you have a very good race, but that's not a good race from Kersey. And they just opened the door once again, and left it gets up the inside. The driver who had contact on the first lap, the driver who lost the front wing on the first lap, who was running around a good 30 seconds off the back of P18. And, well, they've been able to get themselves back up into P13 now on medium tyres that should get them very close, if not to the end of this Grand Prix. We'll wait and see their progress up this field, of course. It's a good recovery drive from them so far. Here's their teammate, though, heading down the start-finish straight, and they've got themselves DRS on the car just ahead, but no opportunity to make an overtake on Modesto Mena this time. The Alpine driver just holding their own in P4 at the moment, but with those fresher medium tyres on versus the harder and much older hard tyres, that is going to be a tricky defence for Modesto Mena, unless they're able to do some very tactical driving where they will likely end up falling off the back of Carter Lundy and the podium here. We're just having a look back now at the McLarens. We've got Johan and Sally have traded places at some point because, of course, we're seeing them in opposite positions than they were earlier on. And we're going back to this battle then with Damien chasing after those guys in the first 4 positions and trying to get themselves back into the lead of this race. If they're able to do so, then they're going to be teed up for a very, very good result, I'm sure, unless they make any mistake or any force majeure happens to come across the track or any late race safety cars, anything like that, which may upset the pecking order. But as things stand at the moment, they've got a very good run. They're getting into a bit of a DRS train, though. With these guys on similar pace, similar age tyres, it does mean that they are getting DRS off of one another, and that's therefore making Damien's DRS all the less effective. But they go down the start-finish straight now then, and there's a big move to the inside from both drivers. Purple final sector for Damien. They've got the pace, and it's another case where someone outbrakes themselves in defence of their position versus Damien in combat in turn 1. Damien up to P4, and just ahead of them you can see there's a Mercedes and an Aston Martin just fighting one another, fighting and going side by side, slowing each other up, and that's giving Damien the perfect opportunity to get up towards the back of them and threaten them to take both of their positions away.
Looks like we got a safety car due to just in front of Mentalism. An accident between Salit and Sandro, both DNF instantly, and I'm assuming that will have been a bit of contact. Yeah, unfortunately the replay. So there we go. You just see the cars strewn across that turn, and it's, I assume, just a tiny bit of contact, and any sort of contact will do that, as Mentalism is now sat behind the safety car. He's going to have to overtake.
Certainly will, and that's just playing even more into the hands of these guys on the medium tyres. That's just going to give them another 2 or 3 laps or so just to sit and just nicely keep the tyres warm, but not too hot, not put too much energy through them, and just get themselves towards the end of this race in a position where they can then end up fighting for the win, for points, all that sort of a thing, with no risk of any blowouts or punctures, that sort of a thing. And we're seeing now some flurry of activity. We've got a lot of drivers heading for the pits, interestingly. So we've got a lot of drivers notably on the hard tyre. So we're looking at Carter Lundy here. We've also got Luca in the pits as well. We've got a few drivers into the pits deciding to go for the soft tyre. So 10 laps on the softs by the time the safety car comes in. Do you reckon that's doable? I think it is.
I think it's just about doable, yeah. Definitely. I mean, that, of course, is assuming that there will no longer be a safety car again. I think based on what we've seen, we could potentially, in the last sort of 13 laps of the race, see that. But it's all based on the drivers, of course.
Certainly is. And I think that one driver who's not going to be especially happy about the flurry of cars heading into the pits for soft tyres is this man here, Damien. Previously leading this race, fought their way very admirably back up into P2, and having made a number of really great moves, one a particularly aggressive move, but they got the job done and nobody DNF'd as a result, so I think it's all fair in love and war in that case. And they are now looking at their teammates behind them on 15-lap-old medium tyres, so they're unlikely to threaten or challenge them at this stage, but it's the massive queue behind them. We've seen that Luca and Carter Lundy are very, very pacey in this race, and I think that an offset in tyre performance of brand new, fresh soft tyres to go to the end versus 8-lap-old mediums on Damien's wagon and 15-lap-old mediums on Nomsi and Leftid's cars mean that they could well be in a position here to get a very, very surprise race win. So, just to give you a full rundown of the order at the moment then, as things stand, we've got Nomsi in the lead of this race, then Damien and Leftid, the two Haas drivers, are then in P2 and P3 respectively. And then from 4th position down, we have Luca, Carter Lundy, Big Corny, 1 second, Modesta Mano, Moon, Leonard, John TF1, Kersey, Mentalism Johan, and then JST rounds out our finishers, or our current runners, I should say, in P14. They're currently way off the back of the field, having to catch up to the back of this safety car queue. But in terms of your DNF so far, we've got Sandro out, Sally out, Bolan out, and then we've got Luke Smith, Ozkaya and Cookie all out as well. So 2 Ferraris out of this race, 1 Aston, 1 Alfa Romeo, 1 McLaren, and 1 Williams as well. So in terms of their Constructors' Championships, that's not going to be something which will give them all that much benefit heading into the rest of this season. But of course, this is just one race of many, and they'll have plenty more opportunities to get those points back over their rivals as things go on. We've got this gaggle of cars then all getting ready to go again, but I think I'm right in saying the safety car came out on lap 22, was it? So it may well come in at the end of this lap, though, with the fact that JST hasn't caught the back of the field just yet. It may just stay out 1 lap longer, but we'll wait and see, of course. JST now reaching the back of that queue. So there they are then, and yes, there we are. So as soon as they reach the back of the queue, safety car in this lap. So get ready to go racing again, folks. 12 laps to the finish, and we will see whether this gamble from the soft tyre runners will pay off, or whether the likes of Damien will be able to get themselves to the finish on those younger but not fresh medium tyres versus their 2 rivals either side of them. So then Nomsi backing up the pack here, just getting ready to go. They've gone a bit quickly here to be able to just, they've not given a massive amount of room to the safety car. So that's making them delay their restart even more. Though potentially that's what they want. They don't want to be followed through that banked corner all too quickly. And they've gone. They've really caught Damien lapping there and left it. Their teammate has gotten by them, it seems. Or at least it looked like they had. And now they've dropped back a bit. So into turn one they go. It's a 3 wide first corner. And contact for Lefted. Lefted goes round there, being pinched into the apex. They've reset to track there. And now it's Damien versus Luca. Luca on those soft tyres. Luca in the Aston Martin all the way around the outside. Will they get space? No. Damien shuts the door. Brilliant bit of racing from these guys here. And Damien manages to keep P2 for now, but seeing P1 just racing and scampering away from them up in the lead there. Nomsi just getting away, a 1 second gap, and then a mistake there from Luca. Luca now under pressure from the Mercedes behind of Carter Lundy. Carter Lundy just looking up behind and just waiting for the perfect opportunity to make a move, but nothing happening just yet. They're both on soft tyres, and now up the inside. Will there be a move here? No, it's a threat. It's a threat of a move, but no one having taken place just yet. So they head now down onto the second DRS straight. They're going down towards the stadium section, and off they go. They're keeping line astern at the moment. No moves happening down into that heavy braking zone that I can see, and everybody just sticking close to one another, except for Nomsi out front. They have broken the DRS already and gotten to 1.1 seconds gap ahead of Damien. Damien is starting to claw that back now, but they will need to do so pretty sharpish because Luca is having a look again, and Luca, massive overspeed. Really, really massive overspeed coming down into turn one. Heavy braking, and they get up the inside. A good move, an easy move, as it turned out in the end for Luca in the Aston Martin. Aston Martin up into P2. The Mercedes of Carter Lundy just behind Damien now, getting ready to go racing with them again.
It's a fantastic race at this point, as we see that Mercedes moving around on the left of Damien.
Oh, don't go all the way around the outside. They're hanging all the way around the outside. Is it going to work? No, not on this occasion. They set a purple first sector, but they haven't been able to do the most worldly of moves and get all the way around the outside in that fast right-hander. It would have been incredibly dangerous to keep on going with that move, so they rightly backed out of it. As they head now through the left-hander onto that second DRS straight. Again, we won't have use of DRS for this lap, but next lap it will be re-enabled. You won't see anyone using it down the start-finish straight, but you will see them use it down this straight that we've just gone through here. So, jumping over the curbs then, and making good use of time now. The medium shod Haas driver now really having to defend really hard from Carter Lundy behind, and the pair of them just starting to create a little bit of a gap to Big Corny rather behind. But as we can see here, it looks like a bit of a repeat of last lap for Damien here. They've got the Mercedes bearing down on them. Into turn one they go. Heavy braking, and they try the up and under. A little bit of contact, it looked like to me. And then they go side by side down into the next couple of corners. And then contact, no space left. Or just a bit too much speed carried into the corner, and oh dear, Carter Lundy off into the wall. They've lost the end plate from their car. Bit of a dangerous rejoin there alongside the McLaren as well. Nearly making contact again, and there we are then. They've gone off the circuit. It's likely now that points are very much out of the realms of possibility for them, and they'll fall all the way down to the back of the field, I'm sure, and we'll need to get another front wing on that car sharpish. So then we're having a look at Modesto Modesto Mena, I should say, who's up in P6 and chasing down after the Williams of 1 second. 1 second also chasing down Big Corny, who's on those medium tyres, but they're of similar age. So if Big Corny's able to keep 1 second behind for the next few laps, then that tyre crossover will start to happen. The softs will lose their benefit of the early grip, and then it'll be much easier to defend from them. But as things stand, they'll now have DRS going down this start-finish straight, and we'll wait and see who is able to do what in that circumstance. So Damien is down in P3 still, having lost the position off that safety car restart, and they've also lost the ability to use DRS on Luca, who is now within 3/10 of Nomsi for the lead.
It's a very close race back in 7th as well. It's just all the cars bunching up after that safety car. And it's basically turning into a game of which driver has the biggest balls, effectively. To put it in, I have no better word to say it than that. It's just the driver with the most steel.
Absolutely,
or
yeah.
As the case may be, the driver with the most carbon fibre.
Oh, yes, indeed. So the driver with the biggest cojones, we could maybe say, it's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So give it a little bit of spice to it. So as they head round now onto the second DRS straight here, we're just following along with Modesto Mena, and as they head up down towards the heavy braking zone, there's no move that they're making on 1 second ahead of them just ahead, and 1 second just ahead. Anyway, so they maintain position for now. It looks like the closest battle in the top 10 that's likely to produce an overtake anytime soon is the one between P1 and P2. 4 tenths steadily coming down between the pair of them here. Soft tyres versus medium tyres, and a little look up the inside from Luca, but no move into turn 1 on this occasion. Will they be able to out-traction them? Oh, what's happened?
Spun the car of Modesto Mena around, just contact with the right rear, spinning Modesto around, and he is not going to be happy about that.
Oh dear, the Alpine falling all the way down the order and out to the point. What was turning out to be a really fantastic race from them has fallen to tatters in these last few laps. We still have 7 laps to go in this Grand Prix, would you believe? So lap 29 of 36, still plenty of action that could happen. So you never know, if someone else gets into bother, that could be Modesto Mena getting themselves back up into the points again. Who knows? One driver who's certainly probably, well, maybe won't, would be Carter Lundy, who is currently a good 38 seconds off the back of the field. So they will have to wait their moment and see whether or not anybody falls out of this race or falls out of the points, allowing them to scoop them up and try and get some sort of salvation from this race. But as things stand, it looks unlikely. So half a second separates the leaders at the moment as they head round the banked final turn here at Zanfort. Damien has been able to get themselves back within a second of these guys, and it looks like a much bigger overspeed differential this time between Nomsi and Luca. Luca moves to the inside. Nomsi really squeezes him, moves him to the inside. That's a dangerous area to be as a car because you could spin out on that inside curve, but Luca has done it. Luca takes the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix with a fantastic move into turn 1. The Aston Martin leads from the Red Bull, and all the Dutch fans go mild. And as they go through sector 1 up into the next couple of corners, it looks like those soft tyres are just giving Luca that ability to just keep that position and not be under too much threat. It's going to be all about ERS management now to the end of this race. Remember what I said earlier on, you can save up a good 65% of your energy per lap in terms of your harvesting, but if you are not even touching your ERS overtake button, you're still using up a good 45% of that. So it will be a real test of who has how much left and how much they're willing to use to be able to try and get those positions swapped around again. That being said, though, even though the gap is staying relatively small right now, you'd have to imagine that Nomsi with 22 lap old mediums versus the still single figure old soft tyres on Luca's car, they will fall back eventually, you would imagine. That being said, though, they are starting to converge once again down the start-finish straight as they head into turn 1, but no move this time from the Red Bull. Damien is just behind as well, and they're potentially sniffing P2 at this stage because they've gotten within half a second of the Red Bull. So do not adjust your sets, anybody. We are very, very close up in the top of the field here, and I'm sure this one is going to be a fight all the way to the end. Scruffy, what can you tell me elsewhere in the field?
I think with regards to you've got 2 packs formed basically at this point, with Moon in the front pack, with the front of the second pack, and then 1 second a bit further up the field. He's bunched right up in that group though. Mentalism, Yo and Curtsy, John TF1, who's come right up from the back of the field purely thanks to those safety cars, and I'm not going to knock his driving skill. It's still there. There is still just about there, but that field is incredibly close as, by the looks of it, Leonard goes round into 6th place. We could potentially see some more changes as John T's in 8th, Curtsy in 9th, with Mentalism just behind in 10th, with JST's Alpha Tauri right up its back end as they come round onto the straight, and we potentially going to have an overtake by Nomsi in the lead.
Oh, they're banging tyres. Oh, it's very close.
They're still alongside.
Still side by side as they go through here. The grip from the soft tyres helping out the Aston Martin now, but no, they've outbraked themselves. They've gone off, they've hit the wall. They're not out of this race, but they're effectively out of it. That's no front wing, that's no tyres. That's, oh dear, it's all over for Luca. They lose the position. Nomsi back up into the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix, and the Red Bull leads once again. They have now got a big corny at... Oh, excuse me, Damien just behind them as well. Big corny on the much younger medium tyres, where there will be a much bigger offset in pace than those aged softs and the aged mediums. So they will be able to potentially make a move as they stay within a second of the Red Bull driver. We've got Damien here within 3/10 of that Alpha Tauri as well, and so they're all sticking close. And then this man here, 1 second, the winner in Belgium last time out, has gotten within 4/10 of the leading pack of the podium. So they're on those soft tyres as well. They didn't seem to work out all that much for Luca, but as we see now, a move from John T. John T trying to go all the way around the outside of the Alfa Romeo of Moon, round the outside on the bank corner. It's like watching the Indy 500 or something. They go down onto the start-finish straight. DRS is enabled, and now it's a drag race up to turn 1. The Alfa Romeo goes to the inside. They brake late. They manage to get back up the inside of the Mercedes. Then, oh no, round they go. It looks like contact possibly from Kersey behind the Alfa Romeo, and that sent Moon into a spin. Moon is now down in P11. Oh, and that was a spirited defense, which you can't help but feel sorry for them there. Oh, what a horrible way to end their race. As they get now on lap 33 down towards the back end of the field. Luca has retired from the session after that incident earlier on, retired in the pits, of course. So we're on board with JST in P9 at the moment. And as we now switch to Damien in P3, they're having a look now. They're trying different lines. They're just trying to make themselves known to Big Corny in P2. And as they head now into the stadium section, this slow speed section of circuit here, they're under threat from 1 second behind on those soft tyres. Only 4.5 tenths back from this lead group. But again, the DRS train is going to be helping to protect Big Corny here. They're going to be able to just maintain that top speed, that VMAX, if you will, as they head down the start-finish straight. And it looks like Nomsi not under as much threat as I would have thought just a couple of laps ago, given the offset in age between these tyres. But perhaps it's Big Corny just biding their time, knowing how powerful the DRS is here at Zanfort on that start-finish straight. Maybe just biding their time, saving up battery, and getting ready for a move on the second to last or last lap. We'll wait and see with that one. We've now got this battle here between John T, who made that brilliant move on Moon earlier on. And we've now gone back to Damien, of course, up in P3, trying to get themselves back up to P1, which they were controlling so dominantly at the start of this race. But now Nomsi and Big Corny lie between them and it. So the AlphaTauri is behind the Red Bull and the Haas behind the AlphaTauri in P1, 2, 3. That's something you don't necessarily hear every day. So as they head down the second DRS straight, they close up their gaps, but there's no overtaking going on just yet. So into the stadium section they go and up towards the penultimate corner. And now with 5 tenths the gap between the AlphaTauri and the Red Bull, that coming down to about 4.5 tenths now. Will we see a move here? Will there be enough energy in those batteries? Will there be enough age in those tyres, in fact, to be able to make a move down here? We'll wait and see. So Big Corny has the DRS. They've got that gap coming down, and now braking on the outside of turn 1. They go all the way around the outside. This is what came a cropper of Luca earlier on. Will they suffer the same fate? They go side by side into the next couple of corners. It's into this slow left-hand section, into the bowl, and up they go now, onto the exit, out traction the Red Bull, and that's P1 for the AlphaTauri. Big Corny leads this race, but now Damien threatening. Oh, and Damien just making a little bit of side-to-side contact with Nomsi there, and just having to back out of it. Otherwise, that would have been a massive crash for the former race leader. Now, change up in those first 2 positions on the second last lap, everyone. So get ready, hold on to your seats. Fasten your seat belts, in fact, as we get ready to go racing for one final time. They come onto the second DRS straight and head down towards that stadium section. As they come around the final corner, we will see them heading around likely in the order that they are now, despite the fact that gap has come down very, very much between Nomsi and Big Corny there up at the front, down to less than a tenth, briefly there for a moment in the braking zone. And as they come through the final turn, will there be enough ERS in either of those cars to defend or attack? We will wait and see. Let's have a look now as we ride on board with Nomsi, and they head down the start-finish straight. Are they catching? They are catching, but are they catching by enough? It looks like they're not. Is there going to be a desperate move? It looks like a desperate dive bomb, and no, it's not come off for them this time. They've not been able to regain that place on the final lap, and now as they come round through the next section of circuit, it's going to be them versus them. Oh, and a desperate move up the inside. They tap the back of the AlphaTauri, but the AlphaTauri survives somehow. That in any other scenario that would have spun them round, but now that's put Damien off, and now Damien having to and contact between Damien and Kersey on 1 second rather, 1 second hitting the barriers and losing part of their front wing after a good bit of fighting and good bit of opportunistic driving. Just left no space at all by the Haas, and Kersey has now retired from this session as well. What's happened to them in the Red Bull? So it's now Big Corny, Nomsi and Damien all heading down this final DRS straight towards the end of this Dutch Grand Prix. We're on the final lap. Big Corny, a driver who I don't think any of us expected to be winning this race, is coming now towards the penultimate corner. They were brilliant in their strategy, brilliant in calling the safety cars, good at tyre management and energy management. They come around the final corner at Zanfort. They come to cross the line and win the Dutch Grand Prix. Across the line come Nomsy and Damien in second and third, and then Leonard will come across the line in fourth. Chauncey F1 with a fantastic recovery drive comes to P6 after penalties. JST, another brilliant race as well from them in the AlphaTauri. They go P5, then left it, and Mentalism Johan. Then 1 second recovering, despite losing that front wing, despite losing P4. They have come home with some points, at least P9 for them. And then Moon and Carter Lundy finish out the order.
I think the stewards are going to have a bit of a field day with this one.
I think they certainly are.
Because there's a certain amount of incident in that race that I wouldn't exactly call clean.
No, a little bit of... I believe the technical term is dive bombering.
Yeah, basically.
Would be what was going on at certain points there. But some very good driving up and down the field. Not necessarily at all times, but, you know, you can't say that the good doesn't exist just because some of the bad happened. Brilliant racing up and down the field, but here is your winner, Big Corny, stepping on the top step of the podium in the AlphaTauri today.
And well-deserved. Might add on that one. It was well-deserved, regardless of who we predict or who we don't predict to be on the podium. At the end of the day, to be on the top step of the podium, you've still got to drive very, very well. You can't win a race purely based on luck. It doesn't work.
Exactly. If anybody could do it, then everybody would do it. As it is, then Big Corny wins this race, and then in P2 on the podium with them is Nomsy, who may well get investigated by the stewards for some of those dive bombs, but we'll wait and see, of course. And then we have Damien rounding out the podium. From P4 downwards, we then have Leonard, JST, John T F1, Lefted, Mentalism Johan, 1 second, Moon, Carter Lundy, Kersey, Luca, Modesto, Sandro, Sally, Bolan, Luke Smith, Ozkaya, and then Cookie rounds out the field. Fastest lap for that race went to 1 second with a 1:10.4. A couple of penalties dished out in that session as well, but we will be right back with you after just a brief intermission. Welcome back then, folks. So, after a very, very exciting F3 Dutch Grand Prix here in PSGL, well, that's certainly one way to make your commentary debut. I can certainly say that much from my perspective, at least. And a brilliant bit of racing up and down the field. Of course, as you rightly mentioned, Scruffy, we're going to see, I would imagine, a few different stewards' inquiries as a result of all that one. But yeah, that was a very good introduction. I think if anybody is ever in any doubt of whether or not esports is properly competitive or exciting or anything like that, just show them something like that. It's a brilliant advert for esports, that sort of racing. Yeah, in terms of, is there anybody that you want to draw any special attention to after that race?
I think if they hold their position on the finishing times, we will have the first double podium of the season, which is Nomsy. That is, of course, if any stewards' inquiries don't come in regarding any moves they may have dive bombed or not. But for the first time, that will be the second podium from a driver. So that will be an interesting one. I think that's the one of Jordan. And also, just saying, how on earth did they make that work up at the lead? I'm not entirely sure. Is it Corny? Was it Corny who came first? Or was it... I've lost complete track now. My brain is mush.
Yes, Big Corny.
Big Corny, yeah, Corny
first.
And as I was saying, one of the more consistent drivers, 8 points in the first race, 6 points, and then I did not start. But at the end of the day, still exceptional driving. I don't know how they made that work, but they did.
And I think that just taking a cursory glance at the standings here, I would imagine that result probably puts them to the top of the table, given that the current top of the table, 1 second, only finished in. They finished away down the field actually in the end after the contact late on, and then they have scored 0 and 5 points in the first 2 rounds before their win in Belgium. So of course, just on the balance of points scored prior to their wins, it looks like we could see Big Corny taking the lead of the championship there. So yeah, that was a brilliant, good old race there from my perspective. I just want to say thank you very much to everybody who has watched with us, everybody who's still here, of course, for the post show. We've got our, if you want to take part in the PSGL or you want to be watching along in the Discord or whatever, then of course we have all the links in description, and we've got our Twitter, we've got our YouTube, we've got Instagram. Well, we don't have Instagram, do we? But we've got various things going on. And of course, we are going to direct you over to F2, which is taking part right now, or will be soon. And from me, I want to say a very big thank you as well to the man in the virtual control room, and that'd be Mr. Biggles.
We have to say thank you. Biggles sat behind the control room there if he wants to say hi, just to let you know he's there.
I'd just like to say hi. Thank you very much, Daniel, for stepping in there. That's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, my voice is a bit croaky. I don't know how you managed it. Yourself and Scruffy did an amazing job. Thank you, all the viewers as well there for tuning in. There are lots of you, no doubt, tuning into that F2. And then, of course, the F1, the big guns, will be tomorrow. So that's it from me, guys.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. And then I would also like to extend a big thank you to my co-commentator in the virtual commentary box, and that would be Scruffy. Thank you very much for joining me today, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
And you as well.
Fantastic.
No, it's tea, Earl Grey hot.
All right, then. Thank you very much for joining us then, folks. I've been Daniel Gilligan, and we will see you next time.
Girls hit you, hallelujah. Girls hit you, hallelujah.